What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. We are sitting inside Smokey, the silver MR2 Spyder. This one has the blown motor, and yes, I can drive it, but it's not really drivable with the amount of blue smoke that's coming out. It's only a matter of time before it fails. So what we're gonna do is pull this out, and in this video, we're gonna go through all the parts needed to case swap your MR2 Spyder. So let's get started. Here's a quick glance at everything that you're gonna need, or just about everything. There's a few things missing, but we'll go through it all. And I'll go over the other parts that are not currently present. All right, so the first thing you're gonna need, this is gonna be the star of the show. It's gonna be a K-Series motor. Most likely you're gonna want a TSX or RSX Type S or Civic SI motor, K20A2 or K24A2. Next, you're gonna wanna get your hands on a K-Series transmission. More than likely, you're gonna want a 5-speed manual transmission from base RSX or 6-speed manual from a RSX Type S. And you also have the option of getting a EP3 5-speed or 6-speed manual transmission. I believe the non-SI had a 5-speed and the SI had a 6-speed. So 02 to 06, I believe. So along with your engine and transmission, you're gonna need a clutch. And since I'm running a Type S motor with a Type S transmission, I'm running the Type S clutch, and this is a segmented stage 3 disc, and it also comes with a flywheel. So RSX Type S transmission and clutch. So these are the stock MR2 Spyder mounts. These are the map mounts. This is a stock Honda mount. This is a stock CRV mount. Basically what you're gonna do, this is forward, so this is between the firewall and the transmission. This is the driver side, passenger side, and this is the subframe. And this is arranged the same way. This will go between the transmission and the firewall. So this will replace that. This will be on the driver side under the battery. This will be on your passenger side, and it'll reuse this. And this will be where your subframe would mount onto the transmission. And this should allow this to work with this. All right, so accessories. If you're gonna be using AC, then you wanna reuse the stock MR2 Spyder AC compressor, and you'll be able to mount that to the housing. You're gonna need a US spec K-Series water pump housing, and you'll have to shave these little tabs off right here in order to get it to fit. I didn't want to shave the tabs off under the car, so I cut these out, and I was told that since I did that, this will break. But this would go here. Yeah. Oh, I can't get it on. Oh, the long one first. So this would go here, and then there's another little billet aluminum block that's floating around here somewhere. Got some legs, got up and ran away. But you would mount your AC compressor down here under the water pump housing. And like I said, you do need a K-Series water pump housing, USDM. The JDM one doesn't work. And then with that, you can use an RSX Type S alternator. And then you'll also need a starter, a manual transmission starter. Water pump housing came on this. I just went to the junkyard and picked this up. Water pump housing, I'm gonna replace that just to make sure that I know it's good. Last thing I wanna do is reuse one that I don't know the condition of. Same thing with the starter and the alternator. I'll order those new. So I'm watching the alternator and starter, and I'm just hoping to see the price drop between now and the time that I'm ready to put all this stuff together and in the car. So those should be up here, but they're not accessories. Here you have an auto tensioner, and this will keep tension on the belt the whole time the car is running. And this is a K-Tune idler pulley. This is the belt that's long enough to wrap around the AC compressor. And this is your multiplexer, which is gonna allow you to kick on and off your AC compressor with basically a Honda wiring system and a Toyota MR2 Spyder compressor. Next up, you're gonna need RSX Type S 0204 engine harness and charge harness. And so these will basically allow you to run all of the accessories and stuff on the engine, and you'll have a patch harness too. And this will allow you to basically mate your RSX and Toyota MR2 Spyder wiring together. I think that's my doorbell. It'll allow you to mate these two different things together. And your swap should come with call packs. So just, I guess, figure out a way to test them out, make sure they're good. If not, be prepared to go out and grab some more. It'll also come with spark plugs. Toss those out, get some new ones. And your swap should also come with injectors, and you can run those. I ran the ones that came in my car with no issues. And if you want to aim for more power, NA, you can get some RDX injectors, which is what I did. So these are 410cc compared to 310cc. And if you dyno somewhere in the ballpark of 220 horsepower, your injectors will be maxed out. So that's something that I did experience. So I do have these, and I plan on running these instead of the 310cc that's currently in the blue Spyder. Before I move on past wiring, there's this one little jumper fuse thing that you'll need. All right, I almost forgot to show this, but this is the fuse tap. And basically what you would do with this is you would plug it into one of these fuses here, and then off the top of it you could put the original fuse in, and then you could use this wire to run another circuit. So as you can see here, this goes into this slot right here, and the fuse is plugged in for the original circuit, and then this wire runs down to inside the car to complete a completely separate circuit. But this is something that you'll need whenever wiring your MR2 Spyder up. So I forgot to mention this while I was talking transmission stuff. This is the shifter cable. This is the new improved 25% thicker, I think it says. And this will attach up front to the shifter. It'll go through a tunnel out the back of the car, and it'll loop around the engine bay and into the original shifter slot for the Civic and RSX transmissions. And this is supposed to have a much better shifter feel. And while you're doing that, so this would mount on top of the transmission in almost like an original slot for the RSX Type S or Civic Si transmissions. And then it'll allow you to basically use the shifter. It'll allow you to have a shifter feel that's very similar to the way it should feel from the factory, those cars. And then while you're doing that, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and change out the shifter bushings on the MR2 Spyder. So you would basically pop off the big plastic shifter. You would take the little rubber grommets out. You would replace them with these billet aluminum pieces. And this would make your shifter like a solid mount to the floor. So when you move it, the little rubber bushings won't give and cause your whole shifter to move around as you're trying to roll through the gears and stuff. All right, so if you order a JDM TSX motor, you'll more than likely you're gonna get this intake manifold. This is the long runner, so this one is good for torque. What we typically see, I think, I shouldn't say we because I'm not a tuner, but what they normally see with this is well above 150 pound-feet of torque. So like maybe on a K24, maybe 170, 180. And you'll see roughly 10 horsepower less than if you were to go with something like a RBC or a Skunk 2. I went with the PRB, so I got a little bit of a horsepower bump without the torque gain. So take that for what it's worth. And I'm going to be going from the PRB to either the RBC ported on the turbo motor and the Skunk 2 on the normally aspirated motor. And this one in a shootout, if I remember correctly, it made roughly 5 horsepower more than a PRB. This made less horsepower, but 10 more pound-feet of torque. And this made 10 more horsepower than a PRB. And I think a few, like maybe 2-3 pound-feet of torque. So I guess if you're looking for torque, you can go with this one. If you're looking for horsepower, you can go with this one. If you're looking for horsepower with a little tiny but more horsepower with a little tiny bump of torque, you would go with the Skunk. And then the RRC, I believe, won that shootout with more horsepower and about the same amount of torque. More horsepower and about the same amount of torque as the TSX intake manifold. And before we move on, you're going to want a thermal gasket while you're in there. This is going to keep the heat from the motor from transferring into your intake manifold, which, you know, you're going to want your cold air to come through. So make sure you get a thermal intake manifold gasket. Same thing for the throttle body. Get a thermal intake manifold. Get a thermal gasket between your intake manifold and your throttle body. And depending on the size of your intake manifold opening, you're going to want a throttle body that's going to be big enough to help flow straight into it. So this is 70, this is 70, and this is also 70. And before I move on, make sure you get a good quality throttle position sensor. So when you get your car, you're not gonna be able to reuse the TSX intake manifold. This has got all of the drive-by-wire stuff, right? Or electronic drive. I don't remember what it's called, but you're gonna want wire. You're gonna want the cable to pull this wheel here instead of just this electronically controlled thing right here. And so with that, you're gonna need basically a USDM intake manifold. More than likely, you're gonna want a big one like a RSX Type S or a Civic Si. So basically a Type S throttle body is what you're gonna want. And when you get that, you don't want to reuse the old manifold. One of the reasons that they say it's a big problem is the original ones they don't handle vibration well at all, or the aftermarket ones. So they just kind of snap. The little connections inside, they just break. I think you want the Acuity Hall Effect throttle position sensor. So those ones, they're made to last. I had issues with 2 or 3 cheap ones. I was like, oh, this is 20 bucks. Oh, this is 50 bucks. And finally, I realized that they just didn't work. I couldn't even get the reading of 0.5 at idle. I couldn't even get down to like 0.5 or something like that, 0.4, 0.5. It would automatically be like 0.1 and the car would be revved up like over 1,000 RPMs just upon turning the key and starting the engine. So make sure you get a good high quality, I guess, Hall Effect Acuity throttle position sensor. You won't regret it. If you get the cheap one, like I did twice, more than likely you will regret it. All right, so we got the motor in and we're about ready to get everything hooked up so we can drive, right? We want to be able to drive the back wheels. So what we have here is swap axles and shafts. So Honda RSX Type S, Acura RSX Type S, or Honda Civic Si intermediate shaft, manual transmission specifically. I'm not sure what the difference is between any other shaft. All I know is if you get the wrong shaft, it won't work. So what you're looking for is for this to be roughly 10 inches. And just like my span from my pinky to my thumb, I know that's roughly 10 inches, 10 inches. So that's about what you're looking for. You're looking for a bolt pattern that looks kind of like this. And I think a lot of them have a similar bolt pattern, but on the cars, I think this is going to be useless if you don't use that little plastic cover. So that's what this one looks like. So let me set that here. And then this is probably from maybe a CRV. So or a Honda Accord, I'm not sure. But for some odd reason, I didn't pay close enough attention. I ordered this, it came in, didn't fit. And I think it was like 125 bucks. So my stupidity, I didn't even bother trying to return it. The guy in the description said, make sure that you order the right part before you order. So I'll try to figure out if I can get rid of this. But all that said, this shaft is a lot longer, as you can see. It's a lot longer. So this is probably like 2 inches longer, and it doesn't work. if you put this into the transmission, this goes way beyond any place that you can bolt it. So you would never be able to bolt this onto the transmission and then still be able to have an axle that meets your hub assembly. So put this aside. Basically what we're looking at is Honda parts with Toyota, I guess, axles at the end. So this will mate to the transmission on the driver's side, and this will come out the driver's side and it'll go into a Toyota hub. This is the spline right here. And then this is the spline. So this will go into this right here. So this is a female end and this is a male end. So this will slot into here and this will come out the passenger side and this will go to your passenger side rear hub, axle assembly, whatever. So that's that. And last but not least, all right, if you got access to a parts yard, like a go pull it, pick and pull, whatever you want to call it, it would help your budget a lot if you were able to go out and find some of these things here. This is a water pump housing. If I were to get this online, it would cost me maybe 150 bucks. It's kind of expensive. I got this from the part yard for 25 bucks with the water pump attached. I'm gonna swap out the water pump, but tensioners, auto tensioners, these get kind of expensive. I think if you went OEM Honda, it's a little over 100 bucks. If you were to get like a remanufactured one, which everybody suggests that you don't use the remanufactured one. I wouldn't say everybody, but I've heard a few people say stick with, I think it was either K-tuned or OEM. So keep an eye out for these. And what I did, I think I found this in, I don't know, maybe it was like a manual. Somebody snipped the manual, but you just take 2 of these bolts and you put it in the vise so that this can't move. And then you take your torque wrench and you basically crank on this until it moves this little thing here to the window. And you just kind of measure, I think it was between maybe 28 and 36 pound-feet. And thing about it is, whether these are good or bad, they all seem to actuate at about 34, 36 pound-feet. So I guess the only way to know for sure is you just put it on and you allow normal tension and you'll see if this is within the window or not. So coil packs. These go bad from time to time. How often, I don't know for sure. I haven't had one go bad yet, but whenever I'm in the parts yard and I see cars, K-Series motors, I go out and I just grab a few of these here. And these, I believe they're 6 to 15 bucks each, depending on which parts yard. But if you get online and you look for them, you buy them, I think is 75 to who knows how much from that point on. So you see these, just go to a parts yard, you see these, just grab them. Or a pressure sensor, like I'm not too worried about this. The crank sensor, yes, you might want to make sure you get one from a Type S motor. And you also want to make sure that you have the right pin out for it too. So I think you can use the JDM ones. You just have to repin it in order for it to work. And this right here, I did switch one of them out because I wasn't sure if I was getting a reading or not. And come to find out, my clip was popping off of this, so the light was coming on. I think it caused the light to come on, I'm not sure. But I basically added an extension to the harness and never had an issue again. So, but I still got an extra one. And intermediate shaft. This thing right here, I guess they're becoming harder and harder to come by. So these are hovering around 200 bucks right now, which is insane. I went to the junkyard, I saw this, I wanted it. I just took it off the car, threw it in my bag, got up to the front desk, and they said something like 35 bucks or something like that. And I was like, what? And that was with a warranty. And so if the bearings were to be bad, I could return it and get a refund, I guess. So this one, I just grabbed it just because, and now I have it. So right now I'm looking at, or I was looking at intermediate shafts for the new build. And like I said, they're hovering around 200 bucks. So I feel like this was a steal, just to walk past the car, see it sitting there, and it's like, oh, I need to grab that. And I did. So that is about all of the little tips that I have that can help save your budget. All right, so you got your engine, your transmission, you got it all wired up, all your accessories, everything is put on the car, and you got it in the car. You crank the car, it's idling, you're excited, you're ready to go for a drive. Last but not least, you're gonna need headers. So make sure you got some headers available on hand, bolt on, and then you might wanna make sure that you have the right downpipe and exhaust. So just and you probably won't need the exhaust just to test drive it, the full exhaust with muffler, but you're gonna want at least headers and possibly some kind of way to muffle the sound a little bit so that it's not ridiculously loud. You get pulled over as soon as you go out for your first test drive or whatever. So headers. And although I didn't have the alternator, the starter, my AC bracket grew legs and got away from me. So I'll have to find that, but that is pretty much it, guys. I have everything I need for the build. So basically I'm about to continue with pulling the motor and transmission out of the blue car, and once I have that 5-speed out, then we're going to start putting all this parts in the silver MR2 Spyder. Okay, so I think I may have missed a few things that you would possibly need. So I did show like a V2 thermostat. This is a V1 thermostat housing, and with the V1 thermostat housing you would need a block off cap for one of your hoses, and then also this little plate right here that makes sure that this cap doesn't pop off under, you know, extreme coolant temperatures or whatever and pressure. And then you'll also need a hose that runs up from your thermostat housing, I guess the back part, not the front part, but the back part, and then a hose, and it'll run up to your throttle body adapter. I may have mentioned it, I'm not sure, but those are a couple things. You'll need some plugs to block off some coolant ports that you won't use. And then I believe I didn't have the starter, so I didn't show the starter, but you'll need a Type S starter or a manual transmission starter if you want to run manual transmission, of course. And you'll need an alternator. The two different alternators, I think the only difference is like a few amps, like 5 amps I think is the difference, 90 and 95 amp maybe. But I think I heard people say something like the plug is different. So you would want to make sure that you know what your plug look like, and you want to make sure that you have the right plug style, pin out, whatever, in order for your alternator to be plug and play. And that is the starter that came on the JDM motor. Same with that intake manifold. And then you'll need a Type S or Type S, I guess, replacement throttle body. So I decided for simplicity's sake, because, you know, I didn't do a whole lot of research. I wanted to just do what I needed to get it running. So I went with a PRB intake manifold and a RSX Type S throttle body. And the throttle body came with everything I needed, but of course I swapped out the stock throttle position sensor for the Acuity Hall Effect style throttle position sensor. And then, you know, you got your other stuff that comes on the stock throttle body. And then I believe you want to block off this port since you would not need to use that. And I think, I'm not sure if this module right here is needed, but which one is the map? I believe this is the map sensor right here. Focus. Yep, map sensor. So you will need a map sensor for your swap as well. And of course, if you get a Type S throttle body and it comes with all the sensors, you're good to go. But I guess it's fairly easy to get to or change if you need to. Not so easy to get to on a MR2 Spyder, just because of how the engine bay is shaped. And I think that's about it. Let me rotate this here. You will need a fuel line, and I got this from, I believe, Mitch's Auto Parts. And then you'll need like a way to fix your throttle throttle cable. And so I just kept all of this here, and basically what I did was I hacked this off so it wasn't in the way of this one, and I used this one and just routed it down and just put that little piece at the end of the throttle cable just into you know, this little loop down in here. I can't really rotate that. I could probably flip this and show. Yeah, just to fit it in that little hole right there. And, or actually, it's the black one that you want to use for the MR2 Spyder. Let me sit the phone down and rotate this, and then pick the phone back up. Yeah. And it's that hole right there that you want to use, that my finger is just above. Right there, you want to use that hole. But yeah, so that's the hole you want to use for your throttle cable. Why is that so hard to show? All this stuff is in the way. Anyway, snap my finger out of there. And then some jumper cables. They tell you in the install instructions that if you don't have ground, I said jumper cables, but I meant ground. But if you don't have ground in certain places on the install, that I guess the car won't start or idle or run the way it should. So just make sure you grab like a few jumper cables, and that's basically what this is. Like AutoZone, maybe like $8 or something like that, $8-10 for just a little jumper cable. And I just went with something that was pre-made and pretty thick, just to make sure it was super, you know, sturdy, durable, and I never had to worry about it. So I believe that is it. And then, as you can see, the garage is a total mess. But I do believe after moving all of this stuff around, I've shown everything needed to K-swap your MR2 Spyder. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, drop a like, leave comments down below, and thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.